Are you a pitcher struggling with sitting into your back hip to push off the mound and you're not sure why you can't get it figured out? I'm going to go over today the hip hinge progression that we take our baseball players through to teach them how to hinge into their hip and essentially helping them sit into that back leg when they're pushing off the mound as part of their delivery. How do I know this? My name is Dr. Jeff Lewis. I'm the owner and physical therapist at Lewis Physical Therapy and Sports Rehab in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, where I have helped countless baseball players get back to throwing pain-free, stronger, and harder after an arm injury. So we're going to go over today the hip hinge drills that I take guys through as part of their assessment or treatment when we're really just making sure they can sit into their back leg correctly. Why do we care about that so much? A big part of the pitch and delivery is the push off. So going from the wind up into their stride, so pushing off the mound. Part of that is allowing or making sure that guys can sit into their back hip efficiently. If they are just in a very knee dominant push off like this versus sitting into their back leg, they're going to have very little force production coming from their leg. And as we know, throwing is force generated from the lower body, transfers to the core, to the arm, and then ultimately the ball for maximum throwing velocity. So a hip hinge. A hip hinge differs from a squat, where a squat, we are really just focusing on sitting straight down. So we're having a good amount of hip flexion and knee flexion together. The difference with a hip hinge is that our knees are slightly bent, really like a soft knees I like to call them, and then we're focusing on bringing our hips straight back. So I'm not moving through my knees, I'm not moving through my back, I'm pushing my hips straight back. And right away, I feel it glute, hamstrings. And that's a big thing that you'll notice with hip hinges. Hey, if you're not feeling your glutes, your hamstrings, you're feeling your back or your knees, something is going wrong in this case here. So first thing we'll focus on, we'll maybe do it with the dowel, but otherwise we'll have soft knees here. And we're just working on sitting those hips straight back, keeping a relatively neutral spine position. That neutral spine differs for everyone. We just want to make sure we're not overly extended like this, but also overly rounded, because then it's going to be a lot more on our back versus our glutes and hamstrings. The second drill we'll take guys through is what I call a kickstand RDL. So in this case, you're going to have one foot, let's say in this case my left foot, where you're going to have most of your work done. We'll use my right foot actually. We're going to be doing most of your work. Slight bend in that knee there. Then our other foot is really just behind us as a kickstand for balance. And it's the same thing. I'm sitting back in that hip. I feel that glute hamstring, standing up. 90% of my weight is on this front leg. This back leg is just there for balance. So that's a kickstand. The next thing we're going to take it into is that single leg RDL position. So I'll be standing on my right leg here, slight knee bend, and I'm reaching back with that other leg and coming up. That's going to be tough for a lot of guys, not only from a coordination and awareness standpoint of the hip, but from a balance standpoint as well. So as a way to help get them a little more comfortable with that single leg RDL, I'll maybe have them do a landmine. So if you don't have a landmine post like that, you can always just put a barbell in a corner and that works as well. So for a landmine, the outside leg is going to be the leg that's going to be performing the drill, and we're going to hold the barbell with our inside hand here. So I'm going to go back to starting with the kickstand more than anything. Just like before, barbell's directly in line with my quad here. Slight knee bend, hip goes back. I'm just going to go to mid shin. If I were to go past that, it's going to be a lot more back, which I don't need or want. So again, slight knee bend, going into that hip, feeling the hip and hamstring, and coming up. And you're probably going to feel that a lot more in the glute, side of the glute area as well, just given the direction of the bias of this drill. So once I get the kickstand, then I'm going to take it into that single leg RDL version. So same thing, slight knee bend, going down, coming up. Again, the nice thing about the landmine is that it takes a little bit of the stability demands from a traditional bodyweight single leg RDL, takes it out of the question. So it allows guys to get more comfortable of feeling that pattern, but also at the same time, when we want to be able to load that pattern, we can load it a lot more with a landmine because we take stability out of the equation. So we're creating a much more stronger hip hinge pattern for our pitchers. So if you have questions about technique for this drill or other ways you want to try to figure out how to improve your hip hinge for a better push off in your delivery, go ahead and leave a comment below with any questions. If you want more information about how we can personally help you get stronger, throw harder, and throw pain-free after an arm injury, text the number below in our comment section and we'll get back to you with more details.